I am going to end this once and for all.
He must stand trial.
He has control of the Senate and the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive.
He must live.
Please don't.
I need him.
Wait. I don't need the dark side to save my wife. I can just use force heal. Never mind. Continue with what you were doing.
Hold on to your butts. Please don't.
Well, here we are. The final chapter in the quote-unquote Skywalker saga. 9 movies that expand decades, across many generations and many fandoms. And this film promises to wrap all that up. Now, coming into this, you have to understand a few things. The first thing is people's response to The Last Jedi. While it made a lot of money back, it still left fans divided. Most critics liked the different tone it went for, while fans really didn't gel well with some of the themes in the movie, and obvious stupid subplots. So needless to say, Disney was not pleased with this response. And on top of that, not too long after The Last Jedi was finished filming, unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away, which means she couldn't be around for the filming of this movie. So there was a lot of factors here in which J.J. Abrams had to work with. This movie needs to both please fans who may have not liked what happened in The Last Jedi and wrap up the series, and satisfy the Disney stockholders. Needless to say, J.J. had a very complicated project on his hands. And once again, Star Wars fans were very hesitant of what was to come. But like almost every problem Star Wars has faced, the ultimate solution has always been a trailer. Yeah, if there's anything that could win a Star Wars fan over, is a pretty good trailer. A trailer that introduced not just a lot of cool visuals, but a lot of questions. The biggest one being, how the heck was the Emperor back? I mean, he was dead. And what does the title Rise of Skywalker mean? JJ once again got us all with the old mystery box trick, and we ate it up. Well, it looked like Disney had done it again. Even after all the controversy that came out after The Last Jedi, after this trailer, people were sure that this was going to be the definitive end to the Star Wars saga, and an end to the division amongst the fans. Then they saw the movie.
T-Series! It's your big day! Incredible job! I know we had our differences, but today, I just want to tell you.
Hey, congratulations, it's a celebration. Party all day, I know you've been waiting. Congratulations, it's a celebration. I just want to tell you that I think that you're amazing.
Yeah, it really didn't work out the way they wanted it to. Instead of melding the different factions of Star Wars fans together that The Last Jedi created, The Rise of Skywalker pretty much splintered off those factions into even more factions, creating one big chaotic mess. But this time for opposite reasons of that of The Last Jedi. People who hated The Last Jedi did not like it because of its un-Star Wars-like tone, while people who did like it liked it for its un-Star Wars-like tone. But with The Rise of Skywalker, people who liked it for its Star Wars-like tone, but also people didn't like it for its Star Wars-like tone. But it wasn't like those people who liked The Last Jedi hated this movie. Some people who hated The Last Jedi liked this movie and some people didn't, but then other people from the other side. It was all a mess. Nothing made sense anymore. Only one thing was known for sure. Either you really liked this movie or you really, really hated this movie. And there were few people who actually fell in between. But what exactly are the specific things that people like and dislike about this movie? And which end of this spectrum is more justified than the other? Well, that's why I'm here. And why, if you're about, 5 minutes in, you're here for some reason. Don't you have something better to do? Now, like I said before, this movie is very much a Star Wars movie in both look and tone. But the biggest complaint people have is that this movie is too much like the original Star Wars, in that J.J. Abrams is just copying the original series over again, much like he did with The Force Awakens. Now, with The Force Awakens, people gave that exception because it was the first movie in a new trilogy, and people understood that J.J. wanted to win their trust back by remaking something that they love. The problem they saw with this movie doing it was the final movie in a trilogy, and J.J. Abrams was still doing the same stuff, instead of doing something at least kinda new. But isn't this why people hated The Last Jedi? Is probably what you're asking yourself. And the answer to that is yes and no. It wasn't necessarily that people hated that Star Wars was going in a different direction. They just didn't like the direction that Rian Johnson was taking them after what was set up in The Force Awakens. They felt that they were promised one thing, but then given another for no explicable reason other than subverting expectations, which is different than having a cool original idea for a Star Wars story. But in this movie, you could say that J.J. Abrams is also subverting your expectations by pretty much doing what Rian Johnson did to him by retconning everything he set up in his movie. You didn't like that they killed off Snoke without giving him any backstory? Psh, whatevs, we'll just throw in something at the beginning of the movie. You didn't like that pointless side plot with Finn and Rose where they go to a gambling planet and talk about child slavery and animal abuse? Come on, what do I look like to you, an amateur? We'll just have her stay in the kitchen while Finn goes on an adventure with Rey and have her do absolutely nothing at all. You didn't like that Rian Johnson made Rey a nobody after being set up that she was somebody? Well, guess what? She's not just somebody. She's one of the biggest somebody that somebody ever somebodied. And this honestly brings me to the first problem with this film. Instead of feeling like a story that J.J. Abrams really wanted to tell, it ended up feeling more like a knee-jerk reaction from a corporation trying to put down the fires that the fans had set on top of their whole empire. And in my opinion, it is clearly shown in the final product. Now, let me preface that when I first saw this film, I actually loved it a lot. Mainly because there's a lot of stuff in this movie that really pulled on my Star Wars heartstrings. A lot of emotional moments and cool ideas. But the more and more I thought about these things that I liked so much, the more I realized that these things are cool in their moments, but when you put them together in this thing you're trying to make called a movie, actually serves more as a detriment. The first thing that comes to my mind, mainly because it's the first thing the movie tells you, is that the Emperor is back. Now, I know the whole quote about the dark side has many ways that people consider unnatural and all that blah blah blah, but here's the thing. The Emperor died. Like, really died. Like, he got vaporized at the bottom of a shaft, and then the shaft that he got vaporized in got vaporized. Like, he was dead. So you can't just have any throwaway line saying how he came back.
Dark science. Cloning. Secrets only the Sith knew.
What does that mean?
What the does that mean?
And that's pretty much all they do to tell you that he's back. It was like JJ had this idea of bringing back the Emperor, but had no real good reason how he brought him back. I don't know, he cloned himself or something. I don't know, have a Hobbit tell you. I don't care what JJ and Disney tell us. It's obvious they had no plans for Palpatine returning. Once again, this is just a knee-jerk reaction from the response of The Last Jedi. So what's Sheev's big evil plan this time? Well, he figured after, the third big bald planet-destroying laser in the sky kinda got kaput, that maybe the whole strategy needs to be changed up a bit. So instead of a ball that could blow up planets, he thought, hey, why don't I have 1,000 triangles that can blow up planets? That'll sure get him. And not only do they not explain how he was able to build such a thing in his time on this planet that should probably not have any of these materials required to do this, but it also is just a retread of what we already seen at this point about 4 times. Just because you change the shape of the mega weapon that destroys planets does not make it not the mega weapon that destroys planets. Which we don't need you to be so different to the point that it's just absurd like with The Last Jedi, but be, at least kinda different, in which you're just not copying the plot of even your own film. Outside them rehashing old stuff that they've already done, how about the things that are new? Are they any good? Well, some parts, yeah, but other parts, which is most of the parts, Not that much. Mainly the objectives of our main cast. You see, they want to try to find old Palpatine so they can stop him and his whole, fleet of not Death Stars, but totally Death Stars. So how are they going to do that? Well, they have to find a map to the planet Exegol, which he is at. But the only way to get to this place is to have a thing called a Wayfinder. But the only way to have a Wayfinder is to have this dagger that has the map to the Wayfinder. And the only way to have the dagger that has the map to the Wayfinder is to go to the place that they think the dagger that has the map to the Wayfinder is. But the only way to read the map that's on the dagger that gives you direction to the Wayfinder to get to the planet is to then have it translated. But the only way to get it translated is for you to go to this planet in which this guy can hack C-3PO so that he can tell you what the actual translation says.
Everybody got that?
The amount of plot devices in this movie outnumber Bella Swan's boyfriends. This sounds less like a Star Wars story and more like a side quest in an MMORPG, not the epic concluding chapter to a trilogy. Could you imagine if Frodo and Sam had to go through all this crap in The Return of the King? And then when you think about these plot devices in the context of the film, they really make no sense. So you're trying to tell me that the Emperor had these things that could lead to the Sith homeworld, a place that no one else knows about, a place that he probably want to keep protected and out of view of everyone else. So for some reason, he makes a map to his map. And on top of that, the map to his map was made in a way in which the only way it could actually work is if you went to the wreckage of the Death Star, stand in a specific spot on this random moon of Endor, hold it up exactly where it would be, and hope that you notice to pull out this little, star tracker thing. Like what? Like why would you need this? The whole point is to keep it a secret. You already have your map to your planet, why would you need a map to your map? And when was this map made? The second Death Star blew up like 40 years ago? And during that time, you had somebody make a well-crafted map onto a knife of all things, and just cross your fingers and hoping that the wreckage of the Death Star wouldn't fall apart during that time in the crashing seas? I don't know, maybe Palpatine was a fan of the Goonies or something. You typically only want to have maybe one or two things your characters have to do in a story like this, because if you have more than that, then the whole story just becomes convoluted and sometimes confusing. And if you add the wrong plot device, it could even ruin past movies that's already been made. Case in point, force healing. Now I know force healing came out of the old EU comics and stuff like that, but you never seen them in the movies. You never seen a Jedi ever just, heal somebody with the force. And no, this moment does not count. The movie never specified what happened here. And even if it was force healing, it was very minimal at best, and you never see it ever again in any other movies. But from what this movie's trying to tell us, is that this is a skill that Rey learned from the old Jedi text, which begs to reason that this information was always out there even during the time of the, Republic, during the prequels, which completely changes everything. Qui-Gon getting stabbed in the gut by Darth Maul? Oh, that ain't no problem. Obi-Wan can just heal him with the healing hand. All those countless clones and Jedi that died during the war? Well, just give them a little bit of healing hands, not a big deal. And most importantly, Padme. The thing that Anakin feared the most to lose. Probably would have needed some, magical healing hands.
Come on, baby. Do the magic hand thing.
I mean, the whole point of Anakin's turn in Revenge of the Sith is that he believed the dark side was the only way to save Padme's life. But here, we're told that the Jedi actually possessed this skill in which he could have saved her life the entire time. And this movie gives us no explanation about why this was never presented to us before. They don't even give us the courtesy of a throwaway line like with the whole Palpatine thing to explain this skill was lost to time or something, anything. And don't tell me, Rey is just so strong with the Force that she's the only one that can do it now. Anakin was literally born of this Force. His midichlorian count was over 9,000 or some stupid crap. If anybody could do it, it was him. Heck, Kylo Ren was able to do it at the end of the movie with zero training. When you have a mechanic like healing in your story, it's wise to have some type of boundary there to explain why you can't always rely on it. And in the movie they try to do it saying that it comes from like their life force or something, which is fine, but they never do anything to establish that, you know, it's something dangerous to do. The worst they did is have Kylo die after using it to save Rey at the end. But you see Rey use it twice in the movie and you see no negative backlash on her. Like if you've seen her like exhausted, or if you've seen her, you know, pass out or something from doing it, then we can go, okay, we can see why this is something not always used. But they don't really give you a justifiable reason why they just don't use it all the time. I mean, there's even a point where Poe gets shot in the arm, but you never see Rey try to heal him. He just has that bandage on for the rest of the movie. Like, why? You can heal pretty much anything. Why not this? And then towards like the last 20 or 30 minutes of the movie, they just suddenly twist and flip Kylo Ren's character arc from the past two movies upside down so drastically it makes no sense. Throughout these three movies, he's been nothing but an evil douchebag who killed his father. But then within like 5 minutes, after having a psychological break when he's talking to his dead father, he's just ready to throw away the dark side and join the good fight. I mean, it's not like I have any problem with Kylo Ren turning good. I expected them to go that route eventually anyway. But here, it just kind of happens out of nowhere. Like less than 10 minutes ago, he was having a fight with Rey, trying to force her to come to the dark side and sit on the Sith throne next to him. Like he was completely sold with the whole ruling the galaxy and all that. But then his mother dies, which yeah, you can see it probably having some effect on him. But apparently that's enough to make him go good again. Which yeah, it's his mom, so you know, I could buy that, but there really wasn't any clear build up to this to show this to be a possibility. It just goes from he's evil, mom dies, and now he's good. In Return of the Jedi, you constantly hear Luke talking about bringing his father back to the light side, and that he senses conflict within him. But at this point, we've had two fake outs from Ben telling us that he's pretty much irredeemable, but suddenly they just say, yeah, no, he can't. Though I have to admit, this is a really good scene by itself. It hits you in just the right emotional spot.
Dad. I know.
Though that lightsaber probably would have been a little bit more useful later on. Speaking of the Knights of Ren, how did they play out? These mysterious warriors that have been built up since The Force Awakens. Former students of Luke that defected with Kylo Ren. We only saw them in a flashback in The Force Awakens, and we didn't see them at all in the, Last Jedi. So, how does JJ address them in this?
Hey, what's up?
Well, this was a disappointment.
When you look at this series as a whole, almost every character here has pretty much a non-existent arc. They're the same characters they were at the beginning of the series. The closest one that you can say probably had an arc is maybe Finn, but they really kind of wrapped that all up within like the first 15 or 20 minutes of The Force Awakens. After that, the only thing he's good for is reminding old people with dementia who the main character is.
Right! Come on! Right! Come on! Right!
He has devolved into saying only a single word. Time to hit the old cosmic trail.
And as far as Rey and Poe, nothing about them has really changed. Sure, you might find out new details about their past or something like that. Like, Poe was a spice runner and Rey, well, But outside of that, they really don't change that much as characters. Poe is still the same Poe you know from The Force Awakens, and Rey more or less is the same Rey that you know from The Force Awakens. Sure, she can probably, move stuff better than the first time around, but outside of that, she's still same old, same old. And let's cap this off by talking about the biggest controversial thing in this movie. That being Rey taking on the Skywalker name. Now, I'm not necessarily against the idea, though I do kind of feel some type of way about them pretty much killing off all the Skywalkers. But the thing is, it feels really unearned. I mean, when we look at the relationship between any of the Skywalkers, whether it be Luke, Leia, or even Ben, none of them really seem that close enough that you felt like, well, yeah, she's just a part of the family naturally. I mean, I guess you could say, well, Leia trained her, but you didn't see any of that. which is not their fault because, you know, Carrie Fisher passed away. But we're supposed to be told that they have this really close relationship enough that she would feel led to, you know, take on her name. Which technically isn't her name because her adopted name is Organa and she never really changed it to Skywalker. And her relationship with Luke really wasn't a relationship either. The entire time of The Last Jedi, all they did was fight back and forth. So when you get to this part and you realize that it's coming, you either come off with a feeling of very unease and unsatisfaction, or, well...
Oh God. No! No! Rise of Skywalker.
At the end of the day, the main issue that this sequel trilogy suffers from is that it lacks vision. And that's what turns Star Wars fans off. And if you're one of those people who are wondering why people are suddenly saying, hey, the prequels aren't that bad in hindsight, let me explain it to you. From my understanding, what they're actually saying is, while the prequels are objectively bad movies, the one thing you can't say they don't have is vision. From The Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith, you could tell George knew what he wanted to tell. A story of a hero who becomes a villain through tragedy of loss and love and all that. Now, was it executed good? No. Well, no, it wasn't. It was pretty bad. But there are a lot of nuggets within that bad trilogy that people say, hey, that's actually a cool idea. And when you watch the Clone Wars series and you see George's idea in the hands of, you know, someone else who kind of actually knows what they're doing, you see there's actually a lot of substance there. But in this Disney trilogy, there really wasn't exactly any real substance as much as it was just a lot of harkening back to the original trilogy and trying to pull on your nostalgia. And while I do hope there is a lot of good moments, and to this day I still say The Force Awakens is a good movie, when you put it together with The Last Jedi and then with The Rise of Skywalker, you find that it's just okay at best. And it was because it really wasn't planned out. JJ gave us something that was promising in The Force Awakens, and then when it was passed to Rian Johnson, he decided to go his own way and there was no one there to moderate him, to kind of guide him on a single path, much like Kevin Feige does for the Marvel movies. And so when they give the reins back to JJ, instead of kind of just rolling with the punches that The Last Jedi gave him, he decided to just double back and forget everything The Last Jedi did, to the point that he's actually going out of his way to do it on film. And once you realize that, it just makes all the other things in the movie that you may love or not love so obviously just a cheap grab at your nostalgia instead of being actual film. So when it's all said and done, this Disney trilogy had a lot of promise, but kind of ended on a whimper. But hey, we still have The Mandalorian, we still have Kenobi coming out, and if you haven't watched the Star Wars Clone Wars series, I would recommend it. Now, there's like a series list out there because it's kind of out of order and, you know, weird. But if you stick with it, or at least watch some of the, you know, the big parts of that series and then the last, you know, chapter of it, I think if you're a Star Wars fan, you will love it. That's all I have to say, guys. If you've watched all 3 parts, thank you. I try to make them as short as possible, but I just have a lot to say about these things. Like, subscribe, share if you want, and until next time, take care.
Congratulations, it's a celebration. Party all day, I know you've been waiting. Congratulations, it's a celebration. I just wanna tell you that I think that you're amazing.
Hey, congratulations to your corporation.